Hello, everyone. It's a new week. It's Betting Weekly WTA show with me, your host, Nigel Seeley, and our WTA handicapper. It's Rory Jiwani, brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sports. But Rory, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in the part of the world. But what a week. We had a winner. Rebecca.
Finally.
Could have been a lot better. Could have been
a lot better.
Could have, and it probably should have been.
Well, we got to Saturday. We had three semi-finalists, and two of them were odds on, were favourites to reach the final, and both of them lost. And obviously the one that was the outsider of the day, Rebecca against Iga Swiatek, she was the sort of shortest price of the three outright. So, yeah, okay, our luck did change, but not completely. But no, it's nice to get a winner finally. It's been a while. Yeah, Rebecca went on to win the final. She beat Swiatek on Saturday. Comfortable win against Marta Kostyuk in the final. Kostyuk was really impressive, actually. Came through some really tough matches, especially against Coco Gauff. And then she beat my other pick, Marketa Vondrousova, in the semi-finals. And Vondrousova was brilliant against Sabalenka, Serena Sabalenka. And I thought we were in there, but she was so disappointing against Kostyuk in the semis. Didn't serve well. And Kostyuk, who looked exhausted at times, just kept getting the ball back. I mean, she's a brilliant athlete. There were times, actually, when she was against Gauff, I thought they were very similar the way they play. And Kostyuk's still 80-1 for the French Open. They're worse 80-1 shots than Kostyuk. I mean, Roland Garros will probably play a bit slower. And the thing to mention is it's a win-only market at the moment with Bet Rivers, but 80-1 is a big price. And in Rouen, Angelina Kalinina knocked out Mira Andreeva, which was great for us. But then she was beaten by a resurgent Magdalenette in the semis, which was a shame. As I say, I think she went off 1-2, minus 200. Might have been even shorter, actually. She was even shorter in the semi-final. So didn't quite happen for us. Just to note that Rouen was a bit slower. It was indoors, but it was a bit slower than Stuttgart. And Stuttgart was slower than last year, considerably so. Service hold percentage was 65, just over 65.5, compared to almost 72 last year. So it's definitely medium pace, whereas Rouen was 62, just over 62, which is sort of on the slow side of medium. So we're going from Stuttgart, which plays quicker than normal play due to it being indoors, to Madrid, which plays quicker than normal play because of the altitude.
Now, a lot of people might watch this show regularly and not really into betting and all the terminology altitude. Now, obviously, no one would. Listen, when I started betting on tennis, I never knew that Madrid was in altitude. It never thought. So, like, you live there. You live there. What are the conditions like now at the moment? If anybody is new to this channel, you'll know Rory actually is based in Madrid. He knows the conditions. He knows this is the tournament we expect winners. Rory, come on, this is your home turf.
God.
If we don't get winners now,
nice.
we're in big trouble.
Nice.
But give us a little explanation of altitude, because we get a lot of questions on the channel. People new to betting. What's the difference between altitude and non-altitude events?
So at altitude, the air's a bit thinner, so the ball travels a bit quicker through the air. So for Madrid in particular, I mean, it's a case actually in Bogota a few weeks ago. That's still really slow. But Madrid is actually a bit quicker. Funny enough, in Madrid, actually, there's the main courts, a couple of courts are actually not the main court, the Manuela Santana, but the 2 and 3. So you got Arantxa Sanchez is the number 2 court, and then you got number 3. They're actually sort of indoors. But the big thing for Madrid is the altitude. Funny enough, we have an athletics meeting here just before the summer, and you get really quick times again because it's altitude. The air's a bit thinner. But as far as this tournament goes, the advantage is for the big servers. The ball just travels that bit quicker through the air, and which is why, despite it being a clay court tournament, it does tend to go to the bigger servers. I mean, even looking at the men's game, I think Rafa Nadal's only won Madrid 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And he's won everything else about 8 or 9, 10 more. And it's because it just swings it a bit in the favour of the bigger servers.
Yeah, and you look at the previous winners here. I mean, Sabalenka won it last year. 2021, she also won it as well. She's a big server. Kvitova has won it 3 times, a clay court event. So you look at the previous winners, that's a trend for these kind of big servers. We saw it last week in Stuttgart as well, where Rybakina was a little bit more, had more advantage, Swiatek as well. So, but the market hasn't really caught up with that. It hasn't really caught up with it. Now you are in Madrid, and obviously we got the first hand. You're going to be at the court next week, along with Sean Calver. Hopefully, you can meet up and do some videos together. But you'll both
I
be on
might
there.
not be there next week. Try and get there next week. I'm there tomorrow, and I'll
Okay.
be there on Friday. But
Okay, well, I think Sean's going out on Wednesday, so maybe Friday. But you're going to be there for the tournaments. You're going to be there. You're going to give some tips across the Instagram account at Because We Win. Make sure you follow that, because Rory will be there and Sean will be there as well. You have the advantage here. Now, I can see from behind you, the blinds aren't open. Now, I was expecting you to open, because I remember doing the video of you this time last year, and it was about 90. It was about 90.
Oh,
the temperature was sweltering. You couldn't bring your sandwiches in. You weren't allowed your sandwiches in, which didn't really bring in the Instagrammers and the YouTubers. Rory not allowed in with his sandwiches wasn't the content that we were hoping for. But now this year seems a little bit different. It seems a little bit different in terms of the weather conditions over there.
Yeah, it's much cooler. Funny enough, about a week ago, it was really nice here. It was really lovely and warm. Not up to last year's temperatures, but yeah, it's going to cool down the next few days. I don't know if you can tell from here. I mean, it's quite sunny out, but next few days, looking at highs around 20 Celsius, so high 60s Fahrenheit. So nothing to get too carried away with. But I say the big thing is the altitude. And I suspect it being cooler, the ball might not travel quite so quickly. It's hard to be certain.
This is what I'm trying to say, because last year, obviously, with the really hot conditions, and maybe conditions before with these kind of winters we've seen, the weather might be a lot hotter there. I can always tell the weather in Madrid without even looking at weather forecasts. Mr. Jiwani will have not 2 layers on; he'll have 1 layer on.
Yes, I've got 2 on today,
and the old bed sheets will be off.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, this time last year, yeah, that was the case.
Yes.
But it is going to be cooler. I remember last year actually going and seeing Marta Kostyuk, who we just talked about. She absolutely melted in the heat, and she lost to Camila Osorio, who actually went out in qualifying today. So, I mean, it might not be as much in favour of the servers. That said, even so, I mean, as I said, Stuttgart played quite slower than usual this week just gone, and Rybakina still won. So part of me just thinks, even if Madrid plays a bit slower than last year, the big servers might have the upper hand. I mean, one thing to say about Swiatek, she doesn't have a great record here because she hasn't played that often here. But she reached the final last year. I think a couple of years before that, she lost to, I want to say Ash Barty, because I did note it down earlier. Yeah, it's... I think she's an awfully short price. Yes, on debut in 2021, she went out to Barty in the 3rd round. And last year, she did drop a set to Ekaterina Alexandrova and then went down in the final. But as you say, the odds, I think the odds makers are still in the mentality. It's clay, so Swiatek is an overwhelming favourite.
Yeah, and that's what happened last week, and we proved profitable to us to fade Swiatek. Before we go on to the draw, just the Spanish tennis are over in Spanish tennis. Muguruza has announced a retirement today. Some great tennis players from Spain, women's tennis players. Arantxa Sanchez, the court is named after her. Conchita Martinez, you have Muguruza. And now the number 1 tennis player is Sorribes Tormo. Is Spanish women's tennis in a little bit of a doldrums at the moment?
Could be. I mean, Paula Badosa's had a lot of injuries over the last year. I mean, she's showed signs. I mean, she took a set off Sabalenka in Stuttgart, but she's on the way back. On the men's front, obviously, Carlos Alcaraz is the big one, and last year everything was about Alcaraz. I mean, the women were a bit ignored. I mean, not just the Spanish women, but all of them. I think there was a bit of a controversy last year with the scheduling and some of the arrangements, and famously the women's doubles winners didn't get to speak after they won the final, which caused a bit of a kerfuffle. Yeah, it's fair to say. I mean, Muguruza has been off for over a year anyway, and I suppose we were kind of expecting it. But because it's funny, because we've actually got the Laureus Awards tonight, the World Sports Awards. They're actually taking place in Madrid, and Novak Djokovic is here. He's been nominated for Player of the Year, but he's just announced that he's not playing in Madrid. So it's a bit strange at the moment. But I suspect, the great and the good will be here this evening, but Djokovic will probably pick up the award and won't be playing. which is a bit weird.
Yep. And we will have the men's show, the Betting Weekly Game Bet Match show tomorrow, myself and Sean Calvert looking at the men's draw. But the action here is all about the women. And we have a very, very interesting draw. It's a 128 player draw. And all the top 32 in the world are through to the second round. So the people are playing for the opportunity to play the best players in the world. And obviously it's a who's who of the women's game. Iga Swiatek is the number 1 seed, and number 2 seed is Sabalenka, number 3 is Corey Goff, and number 4 is Rebecca, who won last week. If we look at the draw, break down the bracket, I spoke to you on the WhatsApp just before we filmed, and I think I might even mention it at the start of the show. I thought the bottom half of the draw looked a little bit easier than the top half of the draw, purely and simply from the clay court statistics. Now, that's the one thing we have to sort of break down here, because obviously there's a different clay court than we see week in and week out. But Iga Swiatek is in the top half of the draw. She doesn't really have much of a threat. Navarro is in there as well. Zachary, the underachiever, I would say, on the women's tour, someone who always gets to the semi-final, quarterfinals, and lets you down. And in the bottom half of the draw, to me, I just thought it was a little bit weak on the bottom half of the draw, and I come up with a couple of big prices to come through that segment. But let's look at the odds. Now, we're only speculating here. We need to have a look at the odds from Bet Rivers, and we will give you the advice on what to have. Iga Swiatek is plus 130. Now, last week in Stuttgart, both you and I, Rory, said that Iga Swiatek should be around about 150, 175. She started off the tournament as plus 100, minus money with some other books, and she didn't win the tour. Now, in a really, really tougher draw after the defeat last week in a tournament she's never done well, she's plus 130. Rebecca is $4. Sabalenka is $5. Obviously, she's won it 2 times in the last 3 years, but obviously she's got some personal problems as well to deal with. Coco Gauff, who's having a real bad run of it at the moment, is $8. Danielle Collins, can she replicate the form that we've seen on the hard courts into the clay court? She's 14-1. Vondrousova 25-1. Very disappointing last week in the semi-finals. Kenmin Zheng 30, Andreeva 33-1. Zachary 40, Kazatkina 50, Svitolina 50, Onjabeur 50. I wouldn't bet with your money. Yasmin Paolini 50, Naomi Osaka 50-1. I wouldn't bet with your money. Emma Raducanu, very, very interesting. Played really well last week. Played Swiatek and was in the semi-finals or quarterfinals, but played really good tennis. She was 80-1 with Bet Rivers earlier today. She's now down to 50. Ostapenko, we never know what she's going to turn up at 50. Alexandrova 66-1. Kudermetova 66-1. Navarro 66-1, and Kostyuk 66-1 as well. Head across to the Bet Rivers website. The list goes on and on with some really household names. Even further down the betting, Azarenka 100-1. So it's loaded. It's a loaded draw. It's a loaded draw. But the one thing I will say from the loaded draw, a player, someone who's never won it, conditions won't. So Iga Swiatek again is taking huge market share here at plus 130, and I think she's a vulnerable favourite again.
I agree. I mean, I'm looking at that top half, and I've been looking at it for a few hours, because there are a number of players who you think could go far. But I suppose the question is, are any of them going to beat Swiatek? And it's hard. I mean, we've mentioned Zachary. She's interesting. Obviously, she's now linked up with Jess Pegula's former coach, David Witt. I mean, Pegula's absent. I mean, she reached the final a couple of years ago, but she's injured, so she misses Madrid.
Well, that shows you again. Like, this court isn't made for a clay court.
No, exactly.
Pegula gets to the final here. This is just not ever seen in clay court events. Exactly. She'd be in the French Open. I'd oppose Pegula, Kvitova, Zabalenka, all the previous winners here, very, very early in round 1, round 2, round 3.
Yeah,
this is different.
Absolutely. But yeah, Zachary's working under her coach, former coach David Witt. Her 8th of the draw is tough because she's got Sloane Stephens, who won in Rouen yesterday. Donna Vekic, who's quite capable if her serve gets going. Martina Trevisan, who beat Osaka in Rouen. Emma Navarro, who you mentioned, and Beatrice Haddad-Maia, who's not in great form, but it wouldn't take a massive leap of imagination to see her go well. In the second quarter, Coco Gauff, she doesn't have a great record, never got past the third round. I mean, she got thrashed by Badosa last year in round 3. But she wasn't in good form 12 months ago, I think it's fair to say. And she's a much better player now. Certainly she's shown that over the last sort of 8-9 months. But she's another one I think, like Swiatek, would prefer conditions a bit slower. Jabeur, the winner in 2022, she's in this quarter, but yeah, as you said, not one to back at the moment. She did show glimmers for best in Stuttgart, but I think sounds like she's got quite a bad knee problem, which stops her from going deep in tournaments. But Swiatek, it's not, it's not a given that she gets through her part of the draw. But
let's look at her draw. Really her draw is pretty Castilla.
You wouldn't say it's too difficult.
Azarenka, Svitolina. And
yeah,
wouldn't really run into any sort of dangerous opponent unless she meets Navarro potentially in the quarterfinals.
Sakkari or Navarro in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, it's she's got an easy run, but at the end of the day, she's got a tournament here that she's not. And I honestly believe that the layers see clay and just go, oh, we've got to be so scared of Swiatek here. Are we going to make her a price that? What price can we make her? And we've got to be worried about it. But I think the conditions here won't suit her. And her record here is atrocious. So I think she'll get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals. But when she gets to the deep end of the tournament, I think she's vulnerable.
Yeah, and last year she got to the final, lost to Sabalenka. And you're looking for that sort of player to beat her. A big server who has big ground strokes. Much like Rybakina did at the weekend. So you'd fancy someone of that ilk to have a chance. Even Raducanu put up a really good fight against Swiatek, took her to the tiebreak. I think went to a tiebreak, or was it 7-5? Might have been, but certainly over 10.5 games in the first set. She didn't look brilliant at times in Stuttgart, and she's not dishing out the bagels and the breadsticks like she has done in the past. And once we move on from Madrid, it gets a bit easier for her. We get more to conventional slow play, and that's when she probably should be around plus 130. But here, you'd want to oppose her, even though on the face of it, she doesn't have the worst draw in the world.
If we're going to oppose her, who are we going to oppose her with?
I've gone for two, and they're both going to be half a point each way. One is Sakkari, because she's proven here. She reached the semis last year. And as I say, I think she's a better player now. She's linked up with David Witt. She did lose to Clara Towson in the Billie Jean King Cup last week on clay, which is a little bit of a worry. Although Towson's one of those players who, when she's on it, is quite hard to beat. But I think at $40, I think she's worth a dart. And the other one is Veronika Kudermetova, who's $66, which I think is a really big price. She showed absolutely nothing last year before reaching the semis in Madrid. She showed a bit of form in Stuttgart. She went down 6-4 in the third to Rybakina. I mean, she hasn't got an easy draw. I mean, she's got probably Raducanu in round two, who's, as I say, looked really good on clay this season. And her serve has improved a lot. Then it's possibly Ostapenko or Badosa. As I say, I am concerned that it's not as hot as last year. It might play a bit slower. But I think at $66, you can take a chance at half a point each way. So they're my two darts in the top half.
I think the market will be absolutely heavily loaded on Raducanu. I think the public play will be bet Raducanu because they think she's back, she's showing the form, but we haven't seen anything from this girl in 3 years, back-to-back tournaments. I know she got to the final, quarterfinals in the last tournament as well in Stuttgart, but I think she's a fade. And I also think Sloane Stephens is a fade. Trevor Sand here against her in the first round after winning that tournament at her age to come here, I think she's a fade as well. So you've gone for two picks, both each way in the top half, which is quite surprising for me because I think the top half is a little bit tougher than the bottom half because obviously we've got the tournament favourite in the top half, and I think you always want to look for the bottom half of the draw for the value because with Bet Rivers you get half the odds 1-2. So if you pick someone in the bottom half, they make the final, and the tournament favourite gets to the final, you've got a nice little price. So there's nothing caught your eye in the bottom half of the draw here.
Oh, it has.
Okay, yeah. Here we go. Because I've got two in the bottom half I like.
I've got one in the bottom half I like.
I
Well,
reckon.
I've got two I like, but one I prefer. I mean, the third quarter, Rybakina, we talked about her, best server in the game. The altitude should help her. She wasn't all that impressive last week until she came up against Swiatek, but her serve gets her so many cheap points, and it's almost unplayable when she's in the mood. She went out to Anna Kalinskaya last year, if I can say it properly. And she's another strong server, good all-round player. You know, she didn't have a good record at Stuttgart before this year. So, you know, who's to say, you know, we won't get a repeat. She's happy on clay. She won in Rome last year, obviously just winning Stuttgart. Not the easiest draw, though. She could face Kostyuk again in round 3, and then possibly Kalinskaya or Alexandrova in round 4. And if she gets through those, she could well make the semis. Sabalenka, number 2 seed, hasn't gone deep in any tournament since retaining her Aussie Open title. Wasn't that great in Stuttgart, and she won the first set against Vondrousova, and then she was pretty much outplayed, and her serve isn't working that well, and that's a real worry for Madrid. She seeded to meet Vondrousova again in the quarterfinals, but before that, she could meet Danielle Collins in the round of 16, and the American skipped Stuttgart, so she would have had to come through the qualifiers. And she thought better of it. She obviously won Miami and Charleston back to back. I said before, you know, I think last week, I said she was the best player in the world on form after Charleston, and I maintain that. She doesn't have a great record here. She went out to Ash Barty in round 2 in 2019, although she did win a set. She was thumped by Bianca Andreescu at the same stage 2 years ago, but she's a very different beast this year. If she can serve as well as she did in the States and get that cross-court backhand going, I really think she'll be tough to beat. And comparing the two, Rybakina's $4, and she could be a bit tired, having had a couple of tough matches in Stuttgart. Collins is fresh, and she's $14. And I've got to back her, because on what she showed in the States, she should win this. She could, well, okay, maybe not should, but she could win this. She's in the opposite half to Swiatek. She doesn't tend to play well against Swiatek, but I think she can come through the bottom half. And at $14, I'm going to have a 2-point each way bet on the Danimal.
We're going big.
Yeah, I think this is the time to catch her, especially if she's fresh. I think that's in her favour.
There is a tendency to think that she's done a bit for the year, though. Winning Miami, in Charleston, 2 tournaments in America, then travelling over here. Is that kind of my attitude? Would be that the thing that she might be thinking, oh, you know, it's my farewell tour. I've won 2 big tournaments in the States, and now I can ease up.
I think this is her best chance of winning a tournament for a while. I don't see her being a contender at Roland Garros. She needs it quicker. She has won clay tournaments before. Obviously, she won Charleston. Her first tour title was in Palermo in 2021. But, you know, that was a 250. You know, against strong fields, I can't see her going deep at the French or the other big tour, you know, the Rome's and Roland Garros. But Madrid, she's got a chance because it's quicker. And I think, you know, she might have a chance on grass. You never know, but I think she'll go
into the fall and go for the US Open and go
US Open
in those tournaments. I think she'll raise her game at home. But I mean,
she's got nothing to lose, though. She has got nothing to lose.
She could be, when you bet Danielle Collins, she could win the tournament or she can go out round 1. There is, it's that kind of, if she's on it, she can win it. But I just think that she's won that Miami tournament was such a big win for her. And then the momentum gone into America. She's on a farewell tour. She's going to be supported by loads of American supporters. At the US Open, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she's going to be absolutely pumped. It could potentially be one of her last tournaments. This stage of the season, I think why would she want to, you know, she's not protecting her ranking for next season. I actually had her as a fade.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I just thought that just the way her scheduling will be, I thought she might go into I think in America on home turf, I think she'll beat anybody, because everyone's John. Well, I remember watching John Isner over in America when it was farewell tour. It was incredible. The scenes at home were incredible. When he went to other tournaments, they weren't the same. So I think she might be lifted with the home crowd. That's my opinion. But anyway, she is value on her current form. There's no doubt about it. Have we got another one in the bottom half?
No, I think just Collins. I mean, it's if you take out, I think Rebecca is the most likely winner of that half. Sabalenka is, I'd say, still a fade. Given everything that's happened to her in the last few weeks and her lack of form. You're looking at players like Barbara Krejcikova. She could go on a run. Mira Andreeva had a good run last year, but I think Rybakina and Collins aside, I mean, Kostyuk's there as well. Kalinskaya, Alexandrova, Kazatkina's done well here before. Qinwen Zheng with her serve could go far. I just think it's quite open. There's no real outstanding candidates apart from Rybakina and Collins. I mean, there is a chance that Collins doesn't reproduce that form that she showed in the States. But at $14, I'm willing to take a chance.
Well, the last two 1,000 events have been won by Collins and Paolini.
Yeah,
and it shows you that this is not, it's not. This is not as predictable as the odds were suggestive or a heavy favourite. So I think you mentioned Kostyuk at the top of the show as a bet for the French Open at 80-1. She's 66-1 to win here.
That I wouldn't put anyone off that price. I'm just worried she faces Rebecca again.
Yeah, but there's also that I have this kind of I don't like betting players who win the week before and have to travel. It's always a sort of a negative for me. So I thought Kostyuk was 66-1, offering a little bit of value. And I also like Paolini. We never even mentioned Paolini. We play Andreeva in the last 16, but I mean, she's the Italian is playing unbelievable tennis.
She gave Rebecca a scare last week.
And I think a 50-1 Paolini. I can't see her not getting to the quarterfinals where she could run into Sabalenka. We're saying Sabalenka's a fade here. So I quite like Kostyuk and Paolini the bottom half. They would be my bets each way at 33-1 to make the final and 25-1 to make the final. I wouldn't really bother about anything in the top half of the draw, but I want to look at the bottom half of the draw. But the one thing is now, we expected a season on the women's tour that was going to be very one-sided. We thought the top four would dominate, they would be fantastic, and they'd win every tournament. It isn't. It's random. And Iga Swiatek, we're disagreeing a lot on this podcast today. We're disagreeing a lot on the betting strategy. But the one thing I do think we do agree on, I think Iga Swiatek at plus 130 is the wrong price.
I think, look, if she wins, fair play to her, but she can win without my money on. If she wins at plus 130, yeah, but she shouldn't be that short. She really shouldn't be that short.
We have people on this podcast who follow this podcast who back Iga Swiatek whatever price they love her and they believe her and they've made money out of her. But I think you're absolutely right. Italy, slower clay courts, that's when you want to bet her plus 130. This tournament you can get a beat, and her record here is not very good at all. Anyway, Rory, it's been an absolute pleasure and congratulations on the winner last week. We should have had two. I thought we would have two.
Yeah.
I thought we'd have at least a place. We'd have got some place money. I thought we'd have a couple. Bit disappointing. You've had a winner, but
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have had the Vondrousova for getting to the final at $33. But anyway,
just a little bit unlucky. It's like having a tee shot on the first day of a golf tournament, but just hitting it was just sort of skimmed across the floor, but not going. It was good, but it could have been. it was just the tempting, and that's what makes betting so fascinating. We had these opportunities there, but we're doing the right things. We keep hitting the crossbar, semi-finalists, etc., etc. Anyway, if you want to follow all his picks on the tournament, you'll be at the tournament tomorrow. So head across to the Bet Rivers website. Head across the Instagram account at Because We Win. Head across to the Bet Rivers website for all these matches tomorrow. It's an early start. Again, it's about 5 o'clock Eastern time. There will be 38, 40 different markets on every single match. Sean Calvert will be traveling to Madrid as well on Wednesday. You'll be able to follow Sean on the Instagram account for all his in-play picks as well and all his adventures. And I'm sure that Rory and Sean will meet up on the Friday. They'll both be there on the Friday.
Friday sounds good.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see you both there. So make sure you head across to our Instagram account. Also, please download the podcast, Betting Weekly WTA, and also Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios. A huge amount of new subscribers on there. Thank you very much. Any questions you have, any sort of information you want to have, any tips, or yourself, share the information with us. We want to make a community on that channel as well. So anyway, enough for me. Rory, good luck. So just give us a recap of the picks for this week in Madrid. It's a 1,000 event, a very big tournament over there where you are based.
Yeah, in the top half, I've gone for 2 small each ways, half point each way on Maria Sakkari at $40, and the same on Veronika Kudermetova at $66. And in the bottom, I've gone for Danielle Collins, 2 points each way at $14.
And I'm going to give you 2 leans. Kostrick, 66-1. Paolini, 50-1. We got you covered. Watch this. Iga Swiatek wins it easy. But anyway, thank you very much for your time, Rory. Enjoy. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit better. And hopefully, is it better as the week goes on? A little bit better? Or is it
No, it's kind of the same all week, really.
Okay.
Might even get rain next week, but we'll see.
The rain in Spain stays mainly on the
plane. Yeah.
Take care. That's it. Betting Weekly WTA show. All the very best, and we'll speak to you very soon.